We were told 3 partial meltdowns, don't worry about it. Now we know it was 100% core melt in all 3 reactors.
Japan is by orders of magnitude many times worse than Chernobyl.
TEPCO is like the little Dutch boy. All of a sudden we have cracks in the dike. You put a finger here, you put a finger there, and all of a sudden new leaks start to occur, and they're overwhelmed. Literally making it up as they go along. We're in totally uncharted territories. You get any nuclear engineering book, look at the last chapter, and this scenario is not contained in the last chapter of any nuclear engineering textbook on the planet Earth. So they're making it up as they go along, and we are the guinea pigs.
The nuclear power plant at Fukushima underwent a great deal of damage in 2011 due to an earthquake and a tsunami. The damaged fuel pool in reactor number 4 and a lack of water in the pool could mean that the 1,000 plus rods of fuel, which contain deadly plutonium, would heat up, catch fire, and emit radiation. What about reactors number 1, 2, and 3? While the reactor number 4 was offline when the tsunami struck, that was not true with reactors 1, 2, and 3. Since the disaster, no human has been inside of reactor number 3 because the radiation is still far too high. Authorities have no reply about how long it will be till reactors 1, 2, and 3 could be dismantled, nor where the melted reactor cores are.
As we stand on the apex of the food chain, you can't taste these radioactive elements, you can't see them, and you can't smell them. We're silent.
The problem is not really under control.
It will not be under control for, it's estimated, between 40 and 100 years from now.
There's no way to clean it up. They say 40 years, but they can't clean it up. They can't.
こういった経験、TMI やチェルノブイリがあるとはいえ、初めてでございまして、実際にその燃料をどういう形で出していくかということが非常に難しいと思ってまして。
In 2013, the Obama White House gave final approval for raising permissible radioactive levels in drinking water and soil following radiological incidents. The new guidelines were issued in what's called Protective Action Guides, or PAGs. The new levels are frightening. In soil, long-term public exposure to radiation can now be as high as 2,000 millirems. That means instead of having a 1 in 10,000 chance of getting cancer, it's now a 1 in 23 chance over a 30-year period. And in terms of water, it's even worse. There was actually no standard that was issued, but it gives on-site authorities greater flexibility in setting the limits.
The Inari Maru was plying troubled waters, fishing for data. It's part of a long-term effort to figure out when, if ever, fish caught near the Fukushima Daiichi power plant will be safe to eat. In the end, their haul was just one small bucket, about 12 pounds of fish, headed to a lab to be tested for radionuclides.
We're south of San Francisco, just a little bit south of Pillar Point Harbor. We're walking towards the beach. This is the Black Silt area. And as you can see, the meter is picking up speed here. We jumped to 90, 104, 120, 128, 144, 162, still climbing, 194, 222, 240, 264, 262, 270, 284, 286, 292. And remember, they say 30 is what's normal for this location.
Many reports coming in across the West Coast of mass die-offs of sea life. For example, take the number of strandings of seal pups in California. In 2013, 1,171 sea lions were stranded, and in 2015, 2,700. In Washington state, hundreds of thousands of birds were dead on Washington state shoreline at Twin Harbor State Park. Starfish are dying by the millions up and down the West Coast, and Canada's West Coast sardine population has completely collapsed. Many say this is due to the fact that radiation is killing much of the food supply for the marine population.
Water samples have tested positive from Tillamook Bay in Oregon as well as Gold Beach in Oregon, and they tested positive for a radioactive isotope called cesium-134. Now, according to scientists, any cesium-134 that is present in the Pacific Ocean has come directly from Fukushima.
Radioactive fish found off the United States has raised fears the country's food chain is polluted, and the Fukushima nuclear disaster is being blamed. Highly toxic cesium-134, the fingerprint of Fukushima, was found in Tillamook Bay and Gold Beach, Oregon.
From the air, the scale of the problems at Fukushima become clear. The growing mass of storage tanks now dwarfs the plant itself. More than 1 million tons of highly radioactive water is now stored here.
But the tanks have been hastily built.
They're made of steel plates, bolted together, rather than welded. Last week, workers detected a major leak in one of those tanks. About 300 tons of water escaped.
What we've seen now is the movement of radioactive hydrogen, tritium, which is a mobile radioactive isotope, but clearly radioactive cesium-134, 137, strontium-90. We're seeing a full range of radioactive contaminants now moving, which indicate that the damaged cores of these reactors, the meltdowns themselves, are now contributing to the contamination of the Pacific Ocean and groundwater.
Did the salmon not come back last year? I think it was 80% of them didn't come back. But the young salmon that were born when those that did come back went up their streams of origin and were able to produce baby salmon before dying. The baby salmon, when they go out to sea, are dying en masse. It took the fishermen up there to demand that the fish be tested for radioactivity. And they found out what they suspected was there. Radiation bioaccumulating in the fish. The herring, the cod, halibut, pollock. He said that the catches are literally dropping off a cliff. There aren't any. They're gone. They're dead.
They've been bracing for what they are expecting to be one of the most catastrophic fisheries collapse in the history of the Klamath River. The number of fall Chinook salmon predicted to return to the river this year is the lowest on record.
TEPCO sent engineers to recalibrate the water levels in reactor number 1, and they found that all the fuel in the core had melted down. Engineers don't know for sure, but anecdotal evidence doesn't bode well. They've been pumping thousands of tons of water to try to cool it, yet the water level is too low to run an emergency cooling system. That means the water is escaping somewhere, and it's probably into the center of the Earth. According to Japanese officials, the government is pouring approximately 300 tons of radioactive water into the sea every day. That's about 71,895 gallons, and it's enough to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool every 8 days. What's worse, it appears that strontium-90 is also coming out in the water proportionally at a higher level than cesium-137. Strontium is an element known as the bone seeker. It deposits itself in bone and bone marrow, resulting in cancers later in life.
In northern Japan, near Fukushima, the thyroid cancer rate or thyroid radiation rates were 1 in a million. Today, they have tested over 14,000 children out of 44,000 that have it. That is 35% thyroid radiation rates.
The EPA's rad-net system monitors the nation's air precipitation and drinking water to track one thing: radiation. It's a system of over 135 air monitors that constantly are collecting data. But unfortunately, right after Fukushima, this wonderful system wasn't really completely operational. It turns out approximately 20% of these radiation monitors were out of service when Fukushima happened. A review of the EPA's website shows that normal quarterly reports of station data have not been published since 2009.
Researchers from a university in France, or the CNRS in France, tested California wine from before and after the Fukushima disaster and found that there was doubled the amount of cesium-137.
The green stuff's not natural, you know that. That's invasive species. Tide pools are dead. We're documenting the tide pools. That's what we do.
Is that what you're doing?
They're dead. They're horrible. These things should just be loaded with starfish. Look at that thing. It's dead. These are the most famous tide pools in the entire coast of California.
Byproducts have almost filled up the storage tanks at the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant in Japan. The area the tanks occupy totals about 230,000 square meters, which is the equivalent of about 32 soccer fields, and there is almost no more expansion space left to allow for more storage. The treated water containing tritium at Fukushima measures more than 1 million becquerels per liter. This is more than 10 times the national standard allowed for release into the ocean. A 2016 report by the Industry Ministry's working group said that there are 5 ways to deal with treated water: releasing it into the sea, evaporation, releasing it after electrolysis, underground burial, or injection into geological layers. Out of the 5 options, releasing it into the sea was deemed as the cheapest and the quickest way to dispose of the water.